Hi, I'm David with EV World News. We're talking about electric vehicles, green energy, and the stock markets. And today, it's a Tuesday, and I'm back in the studio with our founder and chief editor, Bill Moore. How's it going, Bill?
Oh, I'm doing excellent, thank you.
It's interesting because there's been lots of stuff in the news the past couple of weeks, and
Oh
it's
my
not all
God,
necessarily about electric vehicles, but it does
it
involve,
impacts
politics
it. Yes,
involves it,
yes.
and it's really that's been kind of interesting to see where this has gone because you know, I told you before, I try to keep away from politics here because
Yeah,
it's such an inflammatory
yep,
subject. And
yep.
but as we've done a little over a year, Saturday was 1 year of us doing
Oh,
the channel. Okay, so we just hit our 1 year anniversary Saturday. So this is our first show in the new year of EV World News.
well, might as
And
well infuriate a whole bunch of people and talk politics.
yes, we might as well just piss some people off because it doesn't really matter what we report. Whatever we report, it's
It
going to make somebody upset on the left or
somebody
the right,
upset. Yeah, yeah.
and because people just people take politics way too seriously. Okay, everybody should vote. There's no question. Everybody should get out and vote. Okay,
But
that
be
it's your civic duty.
educated voters.
Yeah, be an educated voter. And just because, Bill and I have completely different politics. I'm sure we agree on lots of things, but we don't really discuss politics. But,
No,
it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. I mean, we're both human beings. We have to respect each other. And, you can have your opinions and I can have mine. And that doesn't mean we can't be friends. But I've had people that over them posting stuff on Facebook and stuff like that. And them tagging me in it and me deleting the tags that they unfriended me. And I mean, I've had just weird stuff. It's like, look,
yeah.
it's not,
Sorry I drug you into this world.
yeah, well, it's okay. I don't mind it though in the EV space. It's interesting to see because most people's opinions when they have something like EVs are garbage or EVs are trash, it's like, well, what are you thinking? What is it you don't like about,
They're
you must not
uninformed.
like cars, you
Yeah.
know? So it's just a different propulsion system. And, I get people who think that somehow it's part of government domination that they're going to, make these 15-minute cities and you're not going to be allowed to drive more than 15 minutes away from your house. And, and I'm like, well, why would anybody want that? Why would anybody care if I drove 20 minutes from my house? And in fact, where I live, it's pretty hard not to drive at least
Not to
15
drive. Well,
minutes.
that's what's nice about living in Omaha, because we are basically. I always set aside 20 minutes, right? But I always leave
Mhm.
half an hour early, so I've got a little cushion there. But it's not like we live in Houston or Los Angeles,
Right,
and to drive 15 miles in those cities takes an hour and a half.
right.
Um, so yeah,
From
we have a good situation here.
from Papillion, you could pretty much be anywhere in Omaha, downtown, way out west, in 25 minutes.
Yeah,
And most places you can get to in 20,
yeah,
15 sometimes. Really
yeah.
depends on what it is. My problem is that there's really nowhere I can get to in 10 minutes. And so that's a little now I can get all the stores. There's all the
Right,
Walmarts and Sam's
right.
Club and
Yeah.
other things like that I can get to, but even the Costco in La Vista takes me almost 15 minutes to get to. I mean, it takes
Yeah, I
a
can see
while to
that.
get
Yeah.
down Giles and all that. Anyways,
Yeah.
and we've already got a lot of viewers, so we might as well get into it. So today we're going to be talking about Canoo gets a big infusion. We're going to talk about the best way to build more electric buses. We're going to talk about Kamala Harris's politics. We're going to talk about Formula E. We're going to talk about what Trump is talking about doing with China and EVs. And we're going to talk a little bit about a Chinese semi-truck maker named Windrose. So
Yeah, that's
I
first
think,
I've heard of it. So
yeah, so we got kind of an eclectic group of
yeah,
topics today. I see we've got lots of viewers already. Welcome to the show.
yeah,
Bill and I sometimes will get rambling. We're going to start out talking about Canoo. Okay. Now,
yep.
Canoo is an EV maker out of Oklahoma. And let's see what we've got here. Oh, shoot. I started getting pop-ups. I'm going to try to share this
Yeah.
screen here. Let's see what we've got here. And Canoo makes some unusual looking vehicles that are very distinct. And they've sold some to NASA. They've sold some to the state of Oklahoma. And
Post
this one
office.
over here on the left, this van, is probably the most distinctive looking one.
Yeah.
And let's see if I can get these stupid commercials to stop playing. Anyways,
Frustrating.
Canoe announced Monday it has entered into a prepaid advance agreement with the investment firm. It's called YA2PN. It's also known as Yorkville.
Yorkville, yeah.
And the stock went down, but it had a 42% increase from its recent lows in late June. Now, they're allowed to request advances up to 100 million over the next 24 months. Now, what's really happening here? This EV maker is a small EV maker that has got some good ideas. They're making some pickup trucks. They're making some vans. They're targeting commercial, right? So they're not
Yes.
really targeting individuals so much, but they've got a unique product. They seem like a good company. And there's somebody I feel that needs to be in the consolidation space, meaning that somebody bigger like GM, like Mary Barra out there, if you're listening, should acquire somebody like Canoe. Canoe has unique EV
Looked like you
technology.
froze on us.
Uh-oh, that's not
Yep.
good. But Canoe has
Yeah.
unique EV technology that some of the big three manufacturers could use. And, somebody like Stellantis, Ford, GM would be perfect to acquire Canoe. Okay. And they're making a decent product. It's been well received, what they've put out there. Aren't they working on a current deal with the United States Postal Service? So it looks like the Postal
Yeah,
Service is going to take
they've
vehicles from
they've
them.
already delivered. Yeah, they delivered a handful to the Postal Service.
So essentially what this
Yeah, it looks like
now,
it's kind of like a an American version of the VW microbus is really
it
what
does
it's.
kind
So
of
I
look like
see
that.
it kind of as a competitor to that.
Yeah, a little bit more
Yeah.
future. It does look like something though that you'd look as a moon rover too. It looks like something that NASA would put
Yeah,
out. And I
could
think
do
that's why
that.
NASA
Yeah.
bought some. I mean, it's kind of got that, hey, this would work on the
Yeah,
moon look.
they wanted. Yeah, they want to use it. They use it in Canaveral to transport, astronauts between the prep
So
area, and the launch area.
So what this $100 million cash advance really means is Canoe is going to sell some stock at a favorable term to Yorkville. So they're able to take it in 15 million. They're taking $15 million initially, and they're going to take it in tranches. Now the stock is currently a little bit over $2, and the deal is that Yorkville will essentially take warrants for the stock at a price that is the moving average of the previous 5 days. Okay.
Okay.
And they get it at a 5% discount. And that's basically what that means. So Yorkville has announced that they're essentially, hey, they like what Canoe's doing. We feel that $100 million is going to get to them to the point of where they're solid in the market. And solid in the market can mean a couple things. One, that they're profitable. But if you look at
Right.
stocks in general, if you look at the NASDAQ and you look at the S&P 500 and all those, half of all companies on the stock exchange don't show a profit. Okay. So, it's not necessarily there's value in these companies, whether they turn a profit or not. Now, sometimes a lot of that is they have high employee costs. There's other things they're doing. The idea is to increase shareholder value. So the job of a public company is to increase shareholder value. So a lot of people think of it like if you own your own business, and let's say you have a coffee shop, you have to make money to survive and eat and pay your own family and pay for your bills of the business.
Good family
Right.
friend actually owns one over in Perry, Iowa. So I understand.
Yeah. But when you're a big company, you have this obligation to increase shareholder value, regardless of how that may affect your bottom line. So companies will do everything from people will call it accounting tricks and stuff like that. People talk about the fact that Amazon didn't pay taxes for 20 something years. Well, the truth was they didn't make money for 20 something years. So why would they pay taxes? Okay, they weren't profitable. Amazon's finally profitable. Well, Canoe eventually will either be profitable from what they're doing, or they'll have so much intrinsic value that buoys up and makes the stock more valuable that somebody else will come in and acquire it. Well, to me, they're a consolidation target. I don't see Canoe in 5 years being a standalone company that it is today. Okay, somebody is going to step in and acquire Canoe. We just don't know who it's going to be, or they should.
Yeah, I think it ought to be Apple.
Yeah, there's a good choice too. We're constantly like trying, we wanted Apple to acquire Aptera. We keep trying to throw suggestions for Tim Cook.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we had kind of blindsided us when Volkswagen stepped in for Rivian, right? Which was good for
me. We were really shocked at that one.
And if Apple would step in and acquire Canoe, that would even be better for me, because I do own a handful of shares of Canoe, just in being transparent here. But I asked you this question because I'm not a financial guy. I'm not a stock whiz. I don't understand a lot how these things work, tranches and cash advances and all that type of thing. So I wanted you to sort of explain how that works.
Well, simply in this, they're able to acquire the cash in tranches of up to $15 million.
Okay.
So until they hit the 100 million cap. Now, what the deal is, the most Yorkville will ever pay for the stock is $2.70.
70 cents.
So if the stock goes to $10 in a year, Yorkville will still be able to get the stock for $2.70.
Right.
Okay.
So because they're taking the risk that money they're giving them will improve the economics and performance and profitability of the company then.
Now, the negative to this is if you're a Canoe shareholder and the price is between $5 and $10, and then Yorkville takes their warrants and they take the stock at $2.70, well, it dilutes the value of your shares.
Yeah.
Okay. However, if somebody then comes in and acquires the company at, say $8 a share or something like that, then everybody made out. Yorkville ends up tripling their money, for having put in their 100 million, and that's how that game works. So it's nice because it's shoring up.
So keep my fingers crossed.
Yeah. Well, I mean, $100 million in Canoe seems like a drop in the bucket compared to the $5 billion Volkswagen's putting into Rivian.
No kidding.
I mean,
speaking of which, one of the stories I posted today was this company that an LLC that invested $42,000 in, who was it? Was it Canoe? Was one of the companies, Lucid or somebody?
$42,000.
$42,000. I thought, why are you even reporting on that? That could be one investor pulling out his 401k.
Well, that's not even that's maybe buying one car.
Yeah, that's why, so I was a little confused by that. So I titled that particular story, what was it? Dipping the toe in the water or something like that. It's just 42,000.
I know with Exceeder, if somebody wants to invest in Exceeder, you can buy one of their electric trucks for $25,000 and they'll give you $25,000 in warrants.
There you go.
I mean, that's kind of their solution.
Besides the truck? You get
besides the truck.
And the warrants? Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and you get the warrants. Yeah, and so, I mean, it's kind of a unique play, but, there's an example of essentially a Chinese truck, but they're bringing all the parts here and then they're assembling them in the United States so that they can avoid some of the tariffs, but it's essentially all Chinese parts. And we're going to talk about this a little bit more as we get into the show a little further. So anyways, let's talk about what could be the best way to build more electric buses. So Wrightbus launches the facility.
It's a British company. So, yeah.
Oh, it's a British company. Okay.
Yeah, it's a British company. Yeah.
So we're talking about building buses in the UK here?
Yeah, so we're talking about building buses in the UK, but for actually global market, because they've been selling their buses pretty well, through the. I don't think they've got any outlets here in the United States, but they have been building them pretty well across Europe.
Oh, so they're doing conversions. So they're
Yeah,
taking
well,
existing buses and converting
yeah,
them to battery electric.
that's the interesting thing. They do a fuel cell and they do a pure battery electric new
Hmm.
buses. And so
Okay.
the reason for this particular story attracted me because now they've come up with a process to take and convert mid-life. They call them midlife buses. So they still have some value in that chassis.
Right.
They've come up with a way to, and eventually they're building a facility there in the UK where they're going to take as many as 6 buses at a time from like a fleet, for example, and they can convert those 6 buses in about, I think they said 3 weeks. They convert them over to electric. And this is the first company that this reporter at least is aware of that is offering that as an option for bus operators. Now, what wasn't clear, are these Wright buses or are these buses from other manufacturers, Daimler and so on, that they're doing that. That to me it wasn't clear, but it's interesting that they're saying this may be a way, instead of you having to buy a whole brand new bus, you could take the buses that you already have as a city fleet operator and begin the process of transitioning them over. And they're talking about doing, what was the number? They're doing something like 500 buses a year.
Yeah, 500 a year. Now,
Yeah.
Wrightbus also makes full battery electric new vehicles as well. They've got 900
Yes.
buses on the road
Yes.
already,
Yeah.
and the process to make is to redo about 500 buses a year. That'd be quite a lot. Yeah, it's not real specific. It's interesting that they hired experienced staff away from McLaren,
From
BMW, and
all
Land
over.
Rover for
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I've told you before, there's a company here in Omaha that takes Freightliners and remakes them as EVs. And
We got to
they
go
take
visit them
Freightliner trucks.
sometime.
We should. We should.
Yeah.
Anyways, and they're very secretive about it because they're not high profile by any stretch, but they're
No,
doing
no.
that here in
I've
Omaha.
lived here 40 plus years, and I've heard of them.
Yeah. Anyways, yeah, I found it. Somebody was in a private equity meeting was telling me that that's one of their holdings and their holding company, and I'm just like, that's
Oh,
news to me.
really?
I live here,
Yeah.
and I didn't know that
Yeah. Yeah.
that they had this. All right,
Well, it'd be interesting to see. Go ahead. Yeah.
let's move away from buses. Let's talk about Formula E. So,
Yeah.
a decade of development, Formula E's impact on ongoing road-going electric cars. So, the Formula E races started out in 2014 when only
Yep.
0.5% of new cars sold were EVs. 10 years later, 20% of the world's new
20%.
cars are
Right.
EVs now. Okay. And that's, a 40x increase in 10 years. That's, pretty significant. And people decided they were going to, and the first Formula E race was in Beijing, of all places.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I remember it well, covering it back then. Not being there, but
Yeah,
following
well,
it. Yeah.
doing EV World News for 26 years,
Yeah.
I'm going to
Yeah.
say it's something
Yeah. Well,
interesting.
I did have the opportunity to interview the gentleman that founded that. This was an idea that he was getting started and things like that. And I, did one of the initial interviews for him before they actually began the race season. So I followed it along for wow, what's it been? A decade now? Yeah, a decade. So it's fun. It's fun. It's exciting to watch them. To see how that's developed, and they've got some things they've introduced that has to do. The focus isn't so much on speed, although the cars are fast, and the way they do because obviously they can't do 200 miles or whatever the typical Formula One race series is. So what they've done is we've talked about this before. They've broken the race into 2 parts. You use the same driver and 2 cars. You go around and round and round the track, or in this case, they're formula type road races. So you got curves, and they drive through the middle of London and Beijing and places like that. So it's a little bit different type. It's lots of acceleration, lots of braking, which happens to be a plus for an electric car, because that braking can be transferred back into regenerative energy to go into the battery.
Right.
So the race is more about energy management than it is about speed and motors and horsepower.
Oh.
It's really energy management, because what happens if you're going all out in that second car and you run out of juice, right? You only got that one car, so you got to learn how to manage that energy to make sure you finish the race, but hopefully finish the race near the top. And then they've introduced some things where viewers or people at the track can actually put some input. I never really quite understood how that worked. So maybe the folks that are listening and have been involved with Formula E can explain it to me and the listeners. But you have a way that you can vote to give a particular driver more power.
Oh.
Yeah. So they've really got, kind of this driver engagement. And of course, all the cars are wired, so you know where they are on the track. And there's some really cool stuff they've done with it. Now, that being said, out of this has grown a whole bunch of different races. We've got motorcycle racing now. We've got electric powerboat racing. We've got off-road SUV racing, extreme. They call it Extreme E. So we're seeing, and there's work now being done on flight. So we got electric flight racing that's coming. So there's some really cool stuff that have grown out of this this thing that they started 10 years ago. So
it's
really
interesting to see some of the people involved in this. Richard Branson has a team. And let's see. So you've got Porsche, Jaguar, Mahindra, Nissan, McLaren, Maserati, and DS. I don't know who DS is. Go wheel to wheel in the battle for championship titles. Mahindra is interesting because Mahindra is the lead battery maker in India.
Yeah, big manufacturer of everything from farm tractors to they were the original when who would that be? It was AMC or whoever it was at the time owned Jeep, and they got rid of the tooling for the original Willys Jeep. It got sold to Mahindra. And Mahindra started making, that's why you still see in India, you see what appear to be knockoffs of Willys Jeeps, because the tooling and everything got sold to them. So and Mahindra's been involved with some of the original electric motorcycle racing on the Isle of Man, and so you could see them, and they were the first company to introduce a mass manufactured electric car that they sold in Europe. So pretty.
Here,
go ahead.
Here's a Jaguar entry.
Yeah. So they look pretty much like Formula One cars, other than they're not powered by a Cosworth engine. They're powered by electric motors and batteries.
Right. Now, anyways, that was an interesting topic. Okay. All right, Bill, you wanted to discuss what Kamala Harris's platform is for green energy.
Obviously it has not, I suspect once they hold the convention in the middle of next month, we'll have a better idea what the platform is going to be. But she has a track record. There have been a bunch of articles written on this. I don't want to reiterate any of those, but it would appear that she's pretty favorable towards the carrying on the Biden administration's green platform. So I think if none of the people that sort of follow this more closely than I do, the politics of it, seem to have much doubt that she's going to continue to carry on what Joe Biden has introduced in this term of office. So obviously this came as a surprise to everyone. I was I had to what was I doing? Oh, I was going to get a new bottle of propane, interestingly enough, for my grill, because I'd run out of propane, and we like to grill every now and then on the deck. So I'm down there, and
you're not cooking your food with a magnifying glass.
No, I'm sorry. I'm a little still hooked to some propane use or fossil fuel use, my natural gas water heater, that kind of stuff. I'm slowly getting there. I'm trying to get to those objectives. But anyway, so I pull into the Home Depot, and right in behind, no, in this case, it was the Target, but then no, long story. But anyway, I get pulled in by my old neighbors, pull in right behind me.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, how are you guys doing? Tony and Steph. And so we chatting and so on like that. And a little later on, she comes up to me and she shows me her phone. And the phone says, President Biden has officially withdrawn his campaign effort,
Right.
And of course, we're standing there trying to, okay, what does all that mean, right? And of course, since then, there's all been flurry of press and stories, and on both sides of this whole issue. But the upshot is that it appears again that she's going to pretty much carry on the traditions and policies that Joe Biden has introduced. And personally, I think that's a good thing. I'm a little skeptical about how much leeway they've given the oil and gas industry, but other than that, I'm comfortable with I being a tree hugging liberal. I'm comfortable with where that's going and what she's doing. So,
well, good. I'm not aware of too many of her stances, but I mean, she's been the vice president for 3 years.
Well, that relegates you to obscurity immediately, doesn't it?
Right. It really does. I really don't know what to say. Sometimes it's one of those things that's like, okay, well, if I don't like somebody, I make them my running mate, because then, I don't have to worry about them being a pain in my butt.
At one time in the early days of this nation, the vice president had to come from the opposite party, right? Although Washington, interestingly, in Washington's, farewell address, he said one of his points is don't get involved with parties, right? So, of course, that's almost unavoidable to, you want to get a coalition of people that think like you do, so you can influence the direction of policy. I mean, that's just natural. So I don't know how you would avoid having parties other than multiple parties. We have basically a two-party system, but
unless you're like in a communist country where, as opposed to voting for one or the other, you only have a choice of yes or no.
Yeah, exactly. Yes or no, and don't vote no.
Yeah, don't vote no. It'd be bad for your health.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, I've been recently doing some research on the early '60s period, the Cold War, and Cuba and Russia, and the famous kitchen debate between Castro and Richard Nixon, who was VP at the time. And I'm thinking, God, these people, the Castro regime. In fact, I've got a new somewhere. If I brought my screen up, you could see I was looking at an old newspaper out of the Chronicles issue of the Library of Congress, and it was talking about Castro was a quiet, bookish lawyer. How he described them, a quiet, bookish lawyer. I thought, oh yeah, that's how he became, right? Murderous. First thing those guys did.
That's surprising because he played baseball for Harvard, right?
Well, now I don't know. Well, let's see. I've got a book back here about Castro on my library.
Bill, what's a book? Bill, what's a book?
What's a book? Those things bound with a lot of paper in them and a lot of words printed on them.
I like doing audio books. It's really
I go out, I walk every morning now, and I'm currently listening to a fictional version of that was written in the early 1900s about the journey of Lewis and Clark and that expedition. Which is a great, you're walking along, your time goes like that, and you're, learning some really interesting historical information and perspective. So, yeah. And before that, I listened to, oh God, what's that thing called? Something with Don Juan, which was the basically the book that opened sort of opened the doorway, Pandora's box, to the hippie culture and drugs and, all that kind of thing. So,
and my apologies, folks, if you're new to watching our stream.
Yeah,
We do get off topic and we just
we
sort of
get off
ramble sometimes.
that's okay. Let's get back to topic.
Yeah, we'll get back to topic. Okay.
What was it?
So, the thing is, right now in the green energy space, the big thing is, since Biden's been president, they passed the Inflation Reduction Act, and that's had a big impact on manufacturing in the United States, and it's had a big impact. And then there's been he did executive actions with the mandates for when
Congress wouldn't go along. So
Congress wouldn't go along with the mandates, but you have the statewide mandates in several California aligned states. So some states have said that whatever California is going to do, we're going to do the same thing. And I'm not sure what all they are.
And let's be clear: the mandate does not say you must buy electric cars. What the mandate does, it says the vehicles that are produced have to meet certain emissions levels, right? And so the only way you can meet those emission levels is to get a vehicle that doesn't produce any, or produces far less than what a conventional vehicle does. So it does not specifically say you got to buy an electric vehicle. No, it says the EPA needs to meet this standard, and car companies can only sell so many gas cars, and the amount of cars that are being sold in that the zero emission vehicles has to progressively increase, while the number of polluting gas vehicles needs to decrease. And so that's what the mandate is, but it isn't something that says you must buy this kind of a vehicle. It's just simply a way to try to clean up California's air, right? And I've lived there. I know how dirty that air can be. So to clean up California's air. And guess what? There were a bunch of states, 13, 14, something like that, states that says, we like what they're doing. Can we do the same thing? Because we have air pollution problems here. I mentioned this before. I had once an opportunity. There's a water tower near where my old house used to be. And so I wanted to put a wind gauge up there to measure wind in that area, to see what the potential for putting wind turbines and that kind of thing around. So the city gave me permission to go climb the water tower. So I got up on the water tower just to get a feel for what it would be like and where I'd want to install the anemometer and that kind of thing. And I was surprised at the yellow haze that was hanging above the city and Omaha and the larger Omaha area. Yes.
I guess you can't see it from ground level.
You can't see it from ground level, but when you get up, you can see that haze. And so even we have issues. Of course, right now, if you were up this morning for sunrise, you can see how blood red that sun was. And that's coming from the forest fire, or from the wildfires in Canada. And the air, fortunately, the smoke is way up, so we're not right now. We don't have to breathe it. But these are issues that we have to do. And so a lot of states said, and these aren't eastern states and things like that. New Mexico and I think Washington State and eastern, back east, Massachusetts and different places like that. You can look it up. And they said, we want clean air too. So they voluntarily asked, can we adopt those standards? That's the mandate. It's not a federal edict. You must buy this. And that's just.
Well, it's not forcing people to buy something, but if it's making so the manufacturers can only manufacture something, there's some rules.
The manufacturers responsibly build a vehicle that doesn't
pollute. So here's my take on the mandates. So I look at this a little bit different way. So for starters, we all know, I've been working with you for a little over a year, and I see everything that we have and what's going on in the transition to clean energy. And I'm really big on market forces. Okay. Yeah. And I I look at what's happened in other countries as, and say like the last 10 years of adopting EVs, because the United States is about 10 years behind a lot of the early adopters.
Yeah.
And it really looks to me, we're in 2024, and based on what we've seen go on in several European countries where the United States is a little bit ahead of where they were 10 years ago, it seems that realistically, especially with the way prices are coming down on EVs, that by the time 10 years from now comes around, I'd be shocked that we don't have 80+% of all new car sales being fully electric vehicles. Never mind the plug-in hybrids, because we see how much battery prices are plummeting, how competitive, because the process of making EVs, it requires a lot less components, and so it's simplified manufacturing.
And we're automating much of that process. So yeah,
it's not necessarily good for the UAW, or for necessarily for workers, but as far as for the consumer, it's going. I think it's going to be something that's going to happen.
Well, you know what? I mean, I've never worked on an assembly line. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The closest I've come to it is when I was in college. I worked in the mailing department, and we would do, I'd run a machine that mailed stuff out, right? But I just cannot see. I mean, to me, it would seem mind-numbing to stand there on a line doing the same thing over and over and over again, week in, week out, month in, month out, year in, month out. Of course, there are changes and things like that, but the jobs that are getting replaced by robotics are probably the jobs that need to be replaced by robotics, because they're so, pardon the expression, so dehumanizing, right?
Right, I understand.
People are meant to be creative and expressive, and you're sitting there and you're doing this all the time, right?
Right.
That would drive me nuts. Now, maybe some people they're wired differently and they can do that, but I think that we need, it's something I wouldn't want to have to do.
I understand. I get that. But anyways, so this kind of segues into our next topic, which is Trump would invite China to make vehicles in the United States. Biden bows out of presidential race. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know that Biden wouldn't invite, Chinese EV makers to make some. So part of the idea of putting the 100% tariff on all these Chinese products is, hey, if the product's going to be sold here, we want it made here. Okay. Because you look at what Hyundai is doing. Hyundai, which is a Korean company, is kind of the leader in this, and that next year they ought to output 300,000 EVs out of their plant in Georgia. They're already manufacturing. They just finally, started. They're rolling EV9s off the lot there that are now eligible for the $7,500 tax credit. Now, Trump has promised that on day one, as president, he will sign an executive action repealing the mandates, the federal mandates. Those have no effect on what we were talking about earlier with the California mandates and the 13 states that have allied with California on that. Okay. But I'm big on states' rights. Those states have absolutely the right to do that if that's what their people want. Okay. Now, I don't think at the federal level, the mandates really serve as much purpose as people like. I think they get blown out of proportion, because if people don't realize how much EVs are going to take over anyways. So whether we have mandates or not, it's eventually going to be profitable for Ford and GM and Stellantis to make electric vehicles. It is profitable for Tesla, Volkswagen, Volvo, BYD, Hyundai, and Kia. Okay, they can all make electric vehicles profitably. Why can't the big three U.S. companies? So to me, that's if 6 other companies can do this, why is it that the big 3 American companies can't do it? You have to look at that. It's like, hey, and they're doing it in the United States. So that's that's a big piece. Now, I can also think of other companies that aren't profitably making vehicles. Rivian and Lucid are perfect examples. Okay, that aren't profitable at making passenger vehicles profitably. Will they ever be able to? Yeah. We were talking about this before we got on the show, in that Rivian has this new R2 SUV that's coming out soon. They've got 100,000 pre-orders now for it.
100,000
Okay,
pre-orders. Yep.
that ought to be enough scale that they can become profitable on that vehicle. And it's far more than what it's more than what Ford or GM have been selling, although they're getting close. So, I mean, what was it? Total U.S. EV sales in the last quarter was like 380,000 for 3 months. Something like that, which was an all-time record. So eventually you're going to have people come there. But Trump's saying he would even increase the tariffs as high as 200% on each car to prevent the Chinese EV makers from, trying to bring those cars into the country.
Via Mexico or whatever, yeah.
But let's see. They are really trying. It sounds like Ford is planning on coming out with a smaller, cheaper vehicle. We've seen some prototypes. About that
before.
We've talked about it last week. There's a couple prototypes of possibilities coming out there. Jim Farley says, "What is it? They're going to make one for under $25,000." The problem is, I was going to say the problem is right now Ford doesn't make cars. They only make SUVs and trucks, and so they got to go back into the making of cars again. And
here's the interesting thing is that Ford says, well, we're going to scale about what we're planning on doing with electric cars, and we're going to focus more on building heavy duty pickup trucks, right? So I'm assuming it's the F-250.
Well, that's where they make money. That's our sweet spot.
That's where they make money. But what didn't get noticed is that they're talking about electrifying them, which I assume would probably be some type of a hybrid system. I mean, Ford's had, the hybrid systems for, decade or more. So wouldn't surprise me.
But the ones from 10 years ago sucked. Okay.
Oh yeah,
so,
no.
Yeah, if you bought a Ford Fusion that got 20 miles per gallon, or you bought the hybrid, which got like 23 miles per gallon, that wasn't really killing the technology. Not like Toyota's doing now, where the Camry gets 44 miles per gallon in their hybrid. I mean, Toyota is killing it in the hybrid tech. I saw something yesterday going down the road called a Toyota Crown Hybrid Max Platinum. And so I did a little look up on it. It was a new car. It had drive-out tags on it, but it's something new. It's probably a 2025.
Yeah.
And but it looked kind of like a crossover of some sort. That was a new hybrid car, because Toyota wants to be the leader in hybrids.
I used to get invited to those rollouts, and all the people I knew retired long ago, and so I don't get any more invites to the rollouts on those things. But
that's funny.
I've had some great times. I've got to drive some prototypes and things like that. But hey,
so I want to clear up something too. If Trump is elected, he says he's going to executive action, take executive against the mandates. Okay. But what he can't do is, because those were created by executive action, he's not going to go repeal the Inflation Reduction Act, because he doesn't have that power. So the Inflation Reduction Act was a law enacted under the Biden administration.
Right.
And they can come up with a new law, but that's Congress. Yeah. But Congress has to do that. So that's not something that Trump can actually do. And so I don't think you're going to take away the incentives. And like I was saying last week on the show, I think that Elon Musk putting money behind Trump, I think a lot of it is he wants to ensure that things like that keep going, and they want to make Elon part of at least an official government advisor.
Yeah, I don't see that happening. You're seeing reports where people are speculating that that's only going to hurt.
I've seen some crazy ones, like he would put Larry Fink in the administration. I don't know that people would be too happy about that, or Jamie Dimon. Jamie Dimon might actually be a good one, but Jamie Dimon might actually be a good one. But the Larry Fink one, I don't know what to think about that one. That's BlackRock.
Yeah.
Okay. And really, BlackRock, I mean, Larry Fink's quite possibly the most powerful business person on the planet. Okay.
How many $1 trillion does BlackRock control? I mean,
it's like 30 trillion.
Huge.
It's ridiculous. It's crazy how big it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, he has so much power with almost every company. But one of the things that BlackRock has been as being having such a control over companies, they've been really big on pushing DEI and
Yeah.
people, the companies reducing their carbon footprints.
Right.
So in terms of from the green energy perspective, Larry Fink has been, pretty big on trying to promote it. He's
Yeah.
taken away financing for oil. And, so there's a lot of things that he's
Yeah.
done that despite things, it's just that a lot of people see him as the shadow government.
The shadow government. Yeah.
Yeah. So it
Well, you
really
have that
depends on
kind
where
of
you're coming
power.
from.
Yeah, you have that kind of power. It'd be pretty tempting to find opportunities to wield it. So, yeah.
Yeah. But, Larry, if you're listening, I could be bought for the right price. I know Larry can write a big check. I know Larry can write a big
yeah,
check.
yeah. Hey, and not that EV World couldn't use that, because we seriously need to find opportunities to
Yeah.
grow and spread the word and
Oh,
the
can you just
joy.
see that?
And
EV World brought to you by BlackRock.
right, yeah, there you go.
Oh, at least
Well,
at least
at that
on
point, I will
YouTube.
be happily emeritus retired.
So on our YouTube channel, I sometimes kind of laugh at the commercials I get because I constantly get ExxonMobil ads for how they're cleaning up, to reduce their carbon footprint. And then
Meanwhile,
yeah.
yeah, and
But
meanwhile,
yesterday,
well, go ahead.
yesterday I got a Maserati ad, and some of these are just really funny. I usually get the Hummer EV ads. That's my
Yeah,
most common ad I get is Hummer
yeah,
EV.
yeah,
But I've gotten some others that are coming, the ones that are going on our channel, and it's
yeah.
really kind of funny because Maserati hasn't released an EV yet, but it's coming.
Yeah, but they got one coming. Yeah.
No, they do. Okay, so back on the topic we're just talking about. So, and I'm not familiar with this company. This article came from EV Info, and China has a company called Windrose that makes semi trucks,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
and so they're going to be a competitor to Tesla semis. So,
And
just
Nicola, I would
well,
assume.
Nikola is doing the hydrogen fuel cell trucks.
Yeah, they're doing
So,
batteries too, but yeah,
oh, are they
mainly.
doing batteries?
Yeah,
And we talked last week because I really think the whole thing, just when I think hydrogen looks like it's dying out, then we saw this where Walmart is jumping in the game. And if Walmart has hydrogen stations at 4,000 Walmarts and they
hmm
have their own fleet of these Nikola hydrogen fuel cell trucks, there's going to be some people adopting hydrogen.
hmm
And because I was really thinking, man, hydrogen really looks like it's dying when you saw all of the hydrogen stations in Western Europe and all these ones in California. I mean, like half of all the ones really that were around
there's
in the world, they all closed.
there's a class action lawsuit against who
Toyota.
was yeah Toyota regarding the Mira, because there is such little hydrogen refueling infrastructure in California. But the federal government just pumped I don't know, a billion or so dollars to, or something like some number like that. Look up hydrogen in our search engine; you probably find it into the state of California to breathe some new life back into that area. So
Well, yeah, it's interesting to see where some of these things go because we see new technologies. We're not sure if this technology is going to fly, and hydrogen seems. We hear people what they say about EVs. We know EVs aren't sketchy, but hydrogen. Man, I don't know. It'd be tough to really convince me to go say, "Hey, I'm going to go invest some money into a hydrogen stock," and for Nikola. Nikola hasn't done that well. I mean, they lost their battery division in California because who is it? Mullen Automotive owns it now. They bought it, out of a bankruptcy auction or something
yeah,
like that.
yeah.
Okay, so I'm just saying there's, so when I see Walmart breathing life into Nikola, I'm like, Oh, that's pretty cool. Do I think there might be some consolidation opportunity there? You never know. I could see Walmart dropping some money into that company if they're going to have them take over,
Or
manufacturing the trucking for them.
does Walmart have service stations?
They
Part
do.
of
They have
their
Murphy's. So they have all the Murphy USA stations are Walmarts.
oh
They're in front of almost every.
yeah, doesn't Sam's Club have some kind of a
Yeah, Sam's Club has their own fuels.
Costco like operation?
They do. Yeah, so
Okay,
Sam's and Costco both have the fuel out there where you see the long lines because they sell fuel cheaper than anybody else.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, but anyways, this Windrose company is going to start manufacturing tractor trailers in the state of Georgia. So here's one here, if you can see it
Okay.
there very well. But anyways, looks like a tractor trailer. Anyways, so here's the deal. It says Tesla semi-truck business took a major hit as Chinese electric semi-truck startup Windrose announced plans to set up a U.S. assembly plant with a planned U.S. delivery from 2025. Reuters says that this move signals a potential return of Chinese electric vehicle companies to the U.S., the world's second largest auto market. Set up to establish assembly in Georgia. The new facility has been secured, will be responsible for assembling chassis and other vehicle parts that are manufactured in China. The strategic move is aimed at catering to the majority of Windrose's existing order book, which consists of 6,400 trucks, predominantly ordered by U.S. buyers. So they're going to assemble the vehicles here, which is what my other friend is doing there in Georgia.
Right. Right.
Let's see. They've not disclosed the specific investment amount, but or the exact number of orders originating from U.S. buyers. Now, the tariffs on heavy-duty Chinese electric trucks are currently under 30%. It is in everyone's interest to be building a truly global EV product as well as supply chain. We'd like to build an EV ecosystem in Europe and the US, and Belgium and Europe, and Georgia and the US. The US market is friendly towards Chinese heavy electric trucks based on the fact that tariffs on imported trucks are much lower than those on cars. Yeah, so it'd be interesting to kind of see where this is. They're gearing up to enter the competitive market, challenging Tesla Semi with a similarly priced vehicle at about $250,000. Oh, the battery pack was 700 kilowatt hours. Man.
Yeah,
Capable of going
miles range, yeah.
On a single charge while
And
fully loaded at now 49
tons.
tons isn't legal in the US. Okay, so electric vehicles can do 41 tons. Regular trucks can only do 40 tons. So they might allow 49 tons in Europe or in China.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's the range if it had 49 tons. So I'm sure that range will be
the range
greater.
Would be further then. Yeah.
Yeah, because when Tesla was testing theirs, they had about a 500-mile range, but they were testing it with 41 tons. So if you extrapolate, I don't know if the, if electric truck math works the same as other math, if the ratio, works the same. But
well, does that 49 tons? Is that what's on the trailer, or is that the trailer and the truck combined?
That's everything. That's the weight of everything. That's the tractor and the trailer combined can't weigh. So normal tractor trailers cannot weigh more than 80,000 pounds combined. EVs in the United States are allowed an extra 2,000 pounds. So it's 82,000.
Okay.
Is what they can weigh here in the United States. So 49 tons would be 98,000 pounds.
Okay.
So it's a little bit different. Now, the Teslas only have a 500 kilowatt. What's that?
I said some of that then at that weight is the battery.
Yes. Well, and their battery is 40% larger than the Tesla semi battery.
Yeah.
So they're carrying more weight for that battery. I remember seeing the whole weight for the Tesla semi was only about, it was maybe 6,000 pounds heavier than a normal semi. it wasn't as much as you would have thought of an increase. And I guess it's because it took so much out of the semi that. Anyways, I just wanted to speak out about it because that's interesting because it kind of goes along with what we were just talking about with Trump and his positions.
Yeah.
Anyways, Bill, that's all I've got today, and I've got a time constraint. So,
yep, no problem.
Anyways, folks, I want to thank everybody for watching today. Hope we didn't ramble too much, and I'll be back. I won't be back. I won't be back tomorrow with Mike. I think Mike's out of town tomorrow. I think he went somewhere. Anyways, but I'll be on anyways, and Bill and I will be back on Thursday. Anyways, everybody, thanks for watching, and